James Garner, the unforgettable star of Maverick and the Rockford Files, built a reputation for being funny, charming, and refreshingly honest. But there was one chapter of his life that stayed hidden for decades. His time filming The Great Escape wasn't just another famous movie role. Behind the cameras, it became the setting for a tense and unforgettable clash with Steve McQueen, one of Hollywood's biggest and most mysterious stars. Years after Garner's passing, his own honest comments about McQueen have drawn fresh attention, revealing a side of their relationship that many people never expected. Their story wasn't as smooth as fans imagined, and the truth paints a much more complicated picture. What really happened between these two legendary actors? And why did Garner wait so long before speaking so openly? Before we uncover those surprising details, it's important to look back at the early experiences that shaped James Garner long before he stepped onto a Hollywood set. James Garner's journey to fame was anything but easy. Long before he became a television favorite, he faced hardship after hardship. Even through difficult times, he developed the quiet confidence and natural charm that later made characters like Brett Maverick and Jim Rockford so memorable. His easygoing style won over audiences, but behind that smile was a man who had survived challenges most people never knew about. Born James Scott Bumgarner on the 7th of April 1928 in Denver, Oklahoma, Garner grew up during one of the toughest periods in American history. His childhood changed forever when he lost his mother at only 5 years old after a tragic medical complication. Her death left a huge gap in the family. His father, Weldon Bumgarner, owned a hardware store, but raising James and his two older brothers on his own became an overwhelming struggle. Things became even worse after a fire destroyed the family business. With financial pressure growing, Weldon reportedly turned to heavy drinking, and life at home became increasingly unstable. Garner later described a childhood marked by neglect and harsh treatment. He and his brothers were sometimes expected to perform songs before meals, and refusing could bring punishment. When Weldon remarried, the situation did not improve. Garner later claimed that his stepmother, Wilma, treated him harshly, saying she struck him with tree branches and sometimes dressed him in girls' clothing to embarrass him. Those memories stayed with him for the rest of his life. By the time he was 14, Garner reached a breaking point. During one heated confrontation, he fought back in self-defense. The situation quickly became physical before his father stepped in and stopped it from getting even worse. Years later, Garner admitted the moment left a lasting impression on him, and he believed the outcome could have been much more serious if someone hadn't intervened. Not long afterward, the family fell apart completely. Weldon left, and James and his brothers had to find ways to survive on their own. Even with so many setbacks, Garner refused to give up. He worked all kinds of jobs to get by, including a short time in the Merchant Navy, before chronic seasickness forced him to leave. He even spent a period working as an underwear model, a surprising twist in the life of a man who would eventually become one of Hollywood's most respected and recognizable stars. If you'd like, I can also match this style consistently for the remaining chunks, so the entire script flows seamlessly. In 1950, James Garner was drafted into the U.S. Army and sent to Korea with the 5th Regimental Combat Team of the 24th Infantry Division. His time in the Korean War was incredibly difficult. Just 2 days after arriving, he was wounded by shrapnel during a mortar attack. Only a few months later, he was injured again, this time in an incident involving friendly fire. Those experiences left lasting scars that stayed with him long after the fighting ended. Garner received 2 Purple Hearts for his injuries, but he rarely talked about his military service. Instead of focusing on his awards, he often played down what he had been through. One unusual detail from that period of his life was his strong dislike of garlic, something he reportedly developed while serving overseas. Surprisingly, that odd habit may have helped save his life more than once. According to Garner, there was an occasion when food prepared for his unit had been contaminated. Because he refused to eat anything with garlic, he skipped the meal entirely. On another freezing night, while standing guard, he noticed a faint smell of garlic drifting through the air. Remembering that some enemy troops commonly ate garlic-rich meals, he believed they were much closer than anyone realized. He immediately warned the rest of his unit, giving them time to prepare for what could have become a dangerous surprise attack. Stories like these became part of the remarkable history surrounding Garner's years in uniform. After returning home, Garner didn't step into Hollywood overnight. Like many veterans, he worked wherever he could, taking jobs as a gas station attendant and even helping lay carpets with his father. Then fate stepped in. He met Paul Gregory, who believed Garner had the personality and screen presence to become an actor. At first, Garner wasn't interested and dismissed the idea. But years later, after spotting Gregory's name on the sign of a talent agency, he decided to reach out. That simple decision changed everything. Gregory helped Garner land his first acting role in the Caine Mutiny court-martial. It was only a small, non-speaking part, but it gave him his first real experience in front of an audience. Soon afterward, he earned a role in Sayonara alongside Marlon Brando, proving he could hold his own among major stars. Then came the opportunity that changed his life forever. In 1957, Garner was cast as Brett Maverick in the hit Western series Maverick. At the time, many people questioned whether another Western could compete with hugely popular entertainment programs like The Ed Sullivan Show and The Steve Allen Show. Those doubts disappeared quickly. Garner's effortless charm, quick wit, and relaxed style made Brett Maverick stand out from every other television cowboy. Within just 2 years, the series became a massive success, turning Garner into one of television's biggest stars. But as his fame exploded, tensions behind the scenes were also beginning to grow, and his exit from the show had far more to do with principle than popularity. This keeps the flow into the next section while building anticipation without adding a mini outro. James Garner quickly became the face of Maverick. As Brett Maverick, he won over viewers with his quick wit, laid-back style, and natural charm. The series became one of television's biggest hits, and Garner's career was reaching new heights. But behind the success, trouble was quietly building. In 1960, a writer's strike brought much of Hollywood to a standstill, creating the perfect storm for a showdown between Garner and Warner Brothers that would completely change the direction of his career. With the strike stopping production, Maverick could no longer film new episodes. No scripts meant no work, at least according to the studio. Even though Garner had become one of television's most popular stars, he was earning only about $1,250 a week under his contract. When Warner Brothers temporarily laid him off because production had stopped, Garner believed he had been treated unfairly. That decision pushed him to challenge the studio instead of quietly accepting it. Feeling that his contract had not been honored, Garner filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers for breach of contract. At the time, taking on a major Hollywood studio was a bold move that very few actors were willing to make, but Garner stood his ground. After the case was decided in his favor, the outcome became an important moment in his career. It showed he was willing to fight for fair treatment instead of simply accepting whatever the studio decided. After the lawsuit, Warner Brothers reportedly tried to repair the relationship by offering Garner a better contract and higher pay. By then, however, his trust in the studio had already been damaged. Garner later spoke about feeling like actors were often treated as if they had little control over their own careers. Rather than return under those conditions, he made the difficult decision to leave Maverick behind and move forward on his own terms. Warner Brothers had no intention of giving up on such a successful series. Jack Kelly remained as Bart Maverick, but the studio also searched for another actor who could help fill the gap left by Garner's departure. They chose Robert Colbert, a rising actor whose appearance was remarkably similar to Garner's. Dressed in similar clothes and introduced as Brent Maverick, Colbert was expected to bring a familiar feeling to the show. Even Colbert reportedly joked that he'd rather play a woman named Brenda than spend his time trying to copy James Garner. The studio later expanded the Maverick family again by introducing Bo Maverick, played by a young Roger Moore, years before he became famous as James Bond. On paper, the idea sounded like a smart way to keep the series fresh. But the different Maverick cousins rarely shared the spotlight, and many viewers felt the show never fully captured the same magic that Garner had brought to it. Over time, both Moore and Colbert moved on, leaving Jack Kelly to carry the series through its final season as the long-running Western gradually came to an end. If you want, I can also keep the transitions consistent from chunk to chunk, so the full script feels like it was written in one pass. When Warner Brothers created Bo Maverick, the original idea was very different. The studio wanted the character to be polished, well-traveled, and confident, complete with a British accent. Their first choice for the role was Sean Connery, who was still an up-and-coming actor at the time. Connery even traveled to Hollywood to discuss the project. In the end, though, he decided to pass on the offer and pursue other opportunities. That decision soon led him to the James Bond role that would make him an international superstar. After Connery stepped away, Roger Moore took over as Bo Maverick. At the time, Moore was starring in another Warner Brothers Western called The Alaskans. That series also ran into problems during the writers' strike, and the studio reportedly reused several unused Maverick scripts to keep production moving while cutting costs. Moore noticed the similarities himself, and viewers eventually did too. Despite the studio's efforts, The Alaskans lasted only 37 episodes before being canceled. Although James Garner's exit seemed to close the book on Maverick, his connection to the famous character wasn't over yet. More than 3 decades later, in 1994, director Richard Donner brought Maverick back to the big screen. Mel Gibson stepped into the role of Brett Maverick, capturing much of the humor, confidence, and easygoing style that had made Garner's version so popular with television audiences. The film also featured a special surprise for longtime fans. James Garner returned to the Maverick universe as Marshal Zane Cooper, giving the movie an extra layer of nostalgia. As the story unfolds, his role becomes much more important than it first appears, creating a fun connection between the classic television series and the new film. Interestingly, Paul Newman had reportedly been considered for the role before declining it, opening the door for Garner to make a memorable return to the franchise he helped make famous. The 1994 movie became both a commercial success and a favorite among many fans. Critics also welcomed Garner's appearance, praising the way his return honored the original series while introducing Maverick to a new generation. But long before that successful comeback, another project had already secured his place as one of Hollywood's biggest stars. That film was The Great Escape. Released in 1963 and directed by John Sturges, The Great Escape was inspired by the true story of Allied prisoners of war who carried out one of the most daring escape plans of World War II. The movie gave Garner another unforgettable role, proving he could shine far beyond television. It also placed him alongside an all-star cast that included Steve McQueen, whose performance became one of the defining roles of his career. On screen, the actors worked together to tell an incredible story of courage, determination, and survival inside a heavily guarded German prisoner of war camp. But once the cameras stopped rolling, the atmosphere wasn't always so friendly. Behind the scenes, disagreements and strong personalities reportedly created tension. By Richard Attenborough. Every man has an important role in the daring escape plan. James Garner plays Hendley, better known as the Scrounger, a smooth-talking expert at finding supplies and making deals that seem almost impossible. Steve McQueen's unforgettable Cooler King stands out with his fearless attitude and refusal to give in, while Charles Bronson's Tunnel King battles intense claustrophobia as he keeps digging the escape tunnels despite the overwhelming pressure. The mission is filled with setbacks from beginning to end. One of the carefully built tunnels is to balance helped create a movie packed with suspense, teamwork, courage, and hope. Decades later, it continues to be recognized as one of the greatest war films ever made. Bean was still building his reputation as a Hollywood leading man, and he reportedly wanted his character to leave the strongest possible impression. According to James Garner's later recollections, McQueen, often Scrounger, became a favorite with many viewers during production. Those reported disagreements eventually extended to director John Sturges. McQueen is said to have requested changes that would make his character more noticeable throughout the film. Even so, he, of the New York Times, felt the film was too mechanical and lacked emotional depth. Others, including Time magazine, praised its believable setting, strong pacing, and outstanding cast. Even with those mixed reviews, the film only grew more popular over the years, earning its place as a true Hollywood classic and a powerful story of courage, sacrifice, and survival. So what did James Garner really think about Steve McQueen behind the scenes? For years, Garner kept many of his opinions to himself. Then, later in life, he shared a much more direct account that surprised plenty of Hollywood fans. The entertainment world has always been filled with success, fame, and unforgettable rivalries. From the early days of classic movies to modern Hollywood, disagreements between major stars have often attracted as much attention as the films themselves. Competition, strong personalities, and the pressure. James Garner was widely known as someone who got along with most people. His relaxed personality, quick humor, and professional attitude earned him the respect of many co-stars throughout his career. But when it came to Steve McQueen, Garner's later comments suggested their working relationship was much more complicated. Although they shared the screen in The Great Escape, Garner described their personalities as very different, and that difference reportedly created tension during filming. To many people on set, everything appeared normal. However, Garner later recalled that McQueen preferred to keep to himself and maintain some distance from the rest of the cast. According to Garner's account, McQueen stayed in a private chalet instead of socializing with the others, and often arrived on set in a Rolls-Royce. Garner viewed those choices as signs that McQueen preferred to separate himself from the group, adding to the already noticeable distance between them. In his 2011 memoir, The Garner Files, Garner spoke openly about those experiences. He used strong words to describe McQueen's behavior, comparing his unpredictability to that of Marlon Brando. Garner also wrote that, in his opinion, McQueen was more of a movie star than a traditional character actor, believing his success came largely from his screen presence and carefully crafted image rather than the wide range of roles he could play. That was Garner's personal view, and it became one of the book's most talked about passages. Garner also claimed that disagreements on set sometimes involved emotional outbursts and interruptions that made filming more challenging. According to his memoir, director John Sturges even considered shifting more attention toward Garner's character at one point because of the ongoing tensions. Garner said he declined the idea, believing such a major change would only create even bigger problems for the production. Instead, Garner chose to speak with McQueen directly. From those conversations, he came away believing that McQueen felt his character needed more exciting and heroic moments. Garner wrote that Sturges later expanded the role by adding memorable motorcycle sequences and making the character more action-oriented. Most candid looks at life behind the scenes in Hollywood. Along with his comments about Steve McQueen, James Garner also shared blunt opinions about several other well-known Hollywood figures. In The Garner Files, he described studio head Jack Warner as one of the rudest people he had ever met and criticized Charlton Heston's acting style as overly stiff. Still, it was Garner's honest reflections on McQueen that attracted the most attention. He wrote that he believed McQueen often struggled with insecurity, jealousy, and self-doubt, which, in Garner's view, sometimes made him difficult to work with. Garner also claimed that McQueen's wife, Neil, had spoken with him about some of her husband's personal insecurities and worries about their relationship. Garner presented those conversations as part of his own recollection, suggesting that McQueen's fears often affected the way he interacted with people around him. Even with his criticisms, Garner made it clear that he did not see McQueen as a cruel person. Instead, He believed many of McQueen's actions came from deep personal insecurities rather than bad intentions. Garner often felt he looked out for McQueen, almost like an older brother. Even so, their relationship wasn't always easy. In his memoir, Garner recalled an occasion when McQueen accused him of being involved with Neil, something Garner firmly denied. He wrote that he believed the accusation had no basis and reflected McQueen's own anxieties rather than reality. Whether they agreed or disagreed, those moments became part of the complicated history between the two stars. Garner also had strong memories of working with another, the Great Escape co-star, Charles Bronson. According to Garner, that relationship was even more difficult. He described Bronson as tough, stubborn, and quick to argue. One story from the memoir centered on a poker game at Garner's home, where a disagreement reportedly broke out after Bronson questioned paying money that another player believed he had won fairly. Garner said he stepped in because he felt everyone should honor the agreed-upon bet. The argument became so heated that it nearly turned into a physical confrontation before the situation finally cooled down. Although that disagreement eventually ended, Garner wrote that the tension between the two men never completely disappeared. Years later, they unexpectedly crossed paths at a restaurant, and according to Garner, both immediately recognized that the old resentment was still there. It was another reminder that some Hollywood disagreements can last for decades. Throughout the Garner files, Garner pulled back the curtain on both the highs and the lows of his life. He openly discussed mistakes he made, including periods when he experimented with illegal drugs during earlier years of his career. By sharing those experiences, he wasn't celebrating them. Instead, he reflected on them as part of an honest look back at his life and the choices he had made. The memoir also explored his political views. Garner identified as a proud liberal, admired leaders such as Adlai Stevenson and Barack Obama, and said those beliefs often influenced both his career decisions and the projects he accepted. Looking back on his long career, Garner considered The Notebook and The Americanization of Emily to be among his finest films. He was especially pleased that The Americanization of Emily, which received a modest response when it was first released, earned growing appreciation over the years and eventually became a favorite among many movie fans and critics alike. Even with a long list of successful films, James Garner never pretended that every project was a masterpiece. He had a special appreciation for movies like Murphy's Romance and Grand Prix, but he was also surprisingly honest about the rest of his career. Garner admitted that some of his films simply didn't turn out as well as he had hoped, and he wasn't afraid to say so. That kind of honesty made him stand out in an industry where many stars preferred to praise everything they had ever made. Still, one role rose above all the others. Jim Rockford from the Rockford Files became one of Garner's most unforgettable characters. While the series made him an even bigger television star, the success came with challenges that viewers rarely saw behind the scenes. During the mid-1970s, television producer Roy Huggins, the creator of the original Maverick, wanted to build a fresh detective series that captured the same easygoing charm and clever humor. Working with Stephen J. Cannell, he developed the Rockford Files, placing James Garner at the center of the story as private investigator Jim Rockford. It turned out to be the perfect match. Garner brought warmth, humor, and authenticity to the character, helping the show become one of television's biggest successes. Premiering in 1974, the Rockford Files quickly built a loyal audience. Instead of portraying an unstoppable action hero, Garner played a detective who often struggled to make ends meet, lived in a modest trailer by the beach, wore rumpled clothes, and relied just as much on quick thinking as physical strength. That everyday quality made Jim Rockford feel real, and viewers connected with him in a way that set the series apart from many other crime shows of the time. Garner also insisted on making the action look as believable as possible. Whenever he safely could, he performed many of his own driving scenes and stunts. His longtime love of cars, strengthened while filming the 1966 racing movie Grand Prix, became part of the show's identity. Jim Rockford's gold Pontiac Firebird became almost as famous as the detective himself, especially during the fast-paced chase scenes that fans still remember today. That commitment, however, came with a heavy price. Years of filming demanding action sequences began taking a serious toll on Garner's body. Repeated stunt work reportedly left him dealing with ongoing problems involving his knees and back. By the 6th season, doctors advised him to reduce the physical strain, warning that continuing at the same pace could lead to even more serious injuries. Those health concerns became one of several factors surrounding the show's conclusion in 1980. The end of the Rockford Files wasn't caused by Garner's health alone. Producing the series had also become increasingly expensive. Frequent action scenes, location filming across Los Angeles, and the constant wear and tear on the famous Pontiac Firebird all added significantly to the budget. With the car regularly damaged during stunt sequences and production costs continuing to climb, keeping the show on the road became more difficult than ever, even as its popularity remained strong. Even the smallest details in the Rockford Files reflected the care that went into the production. Jim Rockford's memorable personalized license plate, 853 OKG, became one of those little touches that longtime fans still remember today. While details like that helped give the series its unique personality, they also added to the time, effort, and expense of producing each episode. As the show became more successful, more well-known guest stars also appeared, making production even more costly. Even with those growing expenses, the Rockford Files continued to stand out because of its sharp writing and creative storytelling. One of the show's most beloved running jokes was Rockford's answering machine greeting at the beginning of many episodes. Each message was different, often funny, and sometimes even hinted at what was about to happen. As the years went by, finding fresh ideas became increasingly difficult. To solve that problem, the production team reportedly invited people throughout the NBC building to submit their own answering machine message ideas, turning the search into a fun, creative challenge. The series also became an important stepping stone for several talented writers and producers. One of them was David Chase, who would later create the groundbreaking drama, The Sopranos. At the same time, composer Mike Post created the unforgettable theme song for the Rockford Files, a piece of music that became instantly recognizable and helped establish him as one of television's most celebrated composers. Although the show earned both critical praise and strong ratings, problems behind the scenes never completely disappeared. Beyond the physical demands placed on James Garner and the rising production costs, he also became involved in a long legal dispute with Universal Studios over unpaid royalties. The case lasted for years before Garner ultimately prevailed. While reports confirmed he received a financial settlement, the exact amount was never publicly disclosed. The outcome reinforced Garner's reputation as someone willing to stand up for what he believed was fair. Even after the original series ended, Garner wasn't ready to say goodbye to Jim Rockford. During the 1990s, he returned to the role in 6 made-for-television movies, giving longtime fans the chance to see the beloved detective back in action. Around that same period, however, Garner also faced major personal health challenges, including heart surgery. Those experiences highlighted just how physically demanding his decades-long career had been. The popularity of the Rockford Files also inspired several attempts to expand the franchise. In 1977, NBC developed a potential spin-off called Gabby and Gandy, starring Isaac Hayes and Louis Gossett Jr. as a detective team. A backdoor pilot aired as a Rockford Files episode titled Just Another Polish Wedding, but it failed to generate enough interest, and the series was never picked up. Another effort focused on Richie Brockelman, played by Dennis Dugan. After first appearing in the television movie Richie Brockelman, The Missing 24 Hours, and later crossing over into the Rockford Files, the character received his own series, Richie Brockelman, Private Eye. Despite the promising concept, the show lasted only 6 episodes before quietly coming to an end. In 2010, longtime fans of the Rockford Files had plenty of reasons to get excited. NBC moved forward with plans for a reboot starring Dermot Mulroney in the role of Jim Rockford. The project also attracted several high-profile names behind the scenes, including Steve Carell as a producer and David Shore, the creator of House. With Alan Tudyk and Beau Bridges joining the cast, expectations quickly began to grow. Despite the promising lineup, the new version struggled to win people over. Many early reactions suggested the pilot failed to capture the personality and charm that had made the original series so successful. Critics pointed to Michael Watkins' direction and felt Mulroney's version of Rockford didn't connect with audiences in the same memorable way as James Garner's performance. Editor Dawn Perhouse, known for her work on Prison Break, reportedly made extensive changes in an effort to strengthen the pilot, but the revisions were not enough to persuade NBC to move forward with the series. In the end, the reboot was canceled before it ever reached television. Fans were left disappointed, but many continued hoping that one day Jim Rockford would return in a new adaptation that could truly honor the spirit of the original show. While Jim Rockford always appeared calm, confident, and ready for anything, James Garner's real life was becoming much more challenging behind the scenes. The man who made millions of viewers smile was quietly dealing with health problems that became more serious as the years passed. James Garner was much more than a talented actor. He became one of Hollywood's most respected and admired stars, winning audiences over with unforgettable performances as Brett Maverick, Jim Rockford, and many other memorable characters. Away from the cameras, he also earned praise for his professionalism and for his lasting marriage to Lois Clark. In an industry where long relationships often made headlines for ending, Garner and Clark's decades together stood out as something truly rare. Later in life, Garner reportedly faced a number of serious health challenges that gradually slowed his career. Among them was a stroke, along with the lasting effects of years spent performing demanding stunt work. The action scenes that thrilled audiences, especially during the Rockford Files, came at a personal cost. Over time, repeated injuries led to multiple surgeries involving his back and knees, making everyday life increasingly difficult. Garner spoke openly about how one medical problem often led to another, creating a cycle that became harder to overcome with age. Even so, he continued to face those challenges with the same resilience that had defined his remarkable journey, from a difficult childhood to becoming one of Hollywood's most enduring and respected legends. As the years went on, James Garner continued facing one health challenge after another: chronic sinus infections, heart surgery in 1988, and the lasting effects of the stroke he suffered in 2008 all took a serious toll on him. Even through those difficult moments, Garner remained remarkably determined, facing each setback with the same quiet strength that audiences had admired in his most famous characters. That toughness wasn't limited to movie sets. During a 1981 interview, Garner shared the story of a frightening road rage incident that nearly turned tragic. After a minor traffic accident, another driver reportedly became aggressive and attacked him through the open window of his car. The confrontation escalated, and Garner later said he suffered broken bones and a concussion after being knocked to the ground and repeatedly kicked. Even in that terrifying situation, he refused to back down and showed the resilience that defined so much of his life. Years later, Garner was still working alongside some of Hollywood's biggest names in space cowboys, joining Clint Eastwood, Donald Sutherland, and Tommy Lee Jones as retired astronauts called back for one final mission. Filming proved physically demanding for the veteran cast, and injuries were not uncommon. During production, Garner dislocated his shoulder. Eastwood, who had experience with similar injuries, reportedly helped him before medical staff took over. Garner brushed off the accident with his usual sense of humor, insisting it was simply bad luck rather than a sign that he should slow down. One of the film's funniest moments came when the four legendary actors appeared together in a lighthearted scene that poked fun at growing older. It was a reminder that even Hollywood's biggest stars could laugh at themselves and enjoy the journey, no matter their age. Following his 2008 stroke, Garner's health gradually declined. On the 19th of July 2014, James Garner passed away at the age of 86. His death was officially attributed to a heart attack, bringing to a close the extraordinary life of a man who overcame hardship, military service, career battles, and personal health struggles to become one of the most respected actors of his generation. His unforgettable performances, honest personality, and lasting impact on Hollywood continue to be celebrated by fans around the world. If you enjoyed this look back at James Garner's incredible life and career, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with other classic Hollywood fans. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.